Alright, so we're going to be drawing trees today. So we've kind of got a method I want you using to draw for the time being. As you get more practice, you'll probably develop this and change it and do different things. But I want us to start out like this, okay? So we're going to start off by sketching our tree in lightly. So over here, I'm going to start with an X. And I want to have a foreshortened X. I want it to be kind of smushed. So not a tall one, but kind of a short, wide one like that. Alright, I'm sketching really lightly. I'm using the side of my pencil so that it doesn't get as dark and it's easier to erase. The next thing I want to do, this is going to be where my roots are at. The next thing I want to do is draw my trunk. So I want to think about the basic shape of the trunk. So the trunk's going to be almost a cylinder shape. So I'm going to start by putting a kind of curved circle for the base. If I carried it all the way around, it'd look like this. I don't need to go all the way around, but so you get the idea. And then I want a cylinder. So my cylinder doesn't have to be like perfectly straight and consistent. It doesn't have to be the same diameter all the way up. So it can taper a little bit, or it can move to one side or the other. I can get creative with how I do that. Make it a little more organic because we are, drawing an organic thing. I'm going to actually give it a little bit of curve. And once I get up to a certain height, I can start to pull some branches out. Make them go to different places. So I'm going to have one coming off this way. And again, this branch is really just kind of a cylinder. It's attached to this other cylinder. It comes off here. I can branch it again if I want. I can kind of follow that same pattern for as long as I want. If I don't have leaves on my tree, that might go on for quite a while. And I'll take the other one out to this side and just kind of leave it like that. Alright. So now I'm going to draw in my leaves. So I don't want to draw my leaves one by one. It's going to take way too long. So I want to draw like clumps of leaves. And my clumps of leaves can be different shapes depending on what kind of tree I'm drawing. But we're going to start with kind of circular ones today, just to make things kind of simple. And probably the ones that are towards the middle are going to be the closest ones. So like this one here is probably going to be really close. The other ones might be further away as we kind of come out to the sides or up on top. This is kind of going to be a simple, more cartoony tree, but if you feel like this is like too basic, you can elaborate a little bit more, make it a little more interesting for you. Alright, so now I've kind of got everything sketched out. I know where it's going to be. I've got my guidelines. I can move things around and correct them if I want right now. I can kind of think about what I want the tree to be doing, where I want things to be. But once I'm kind of happy with the general tree shape, I can go ahead and start sketching things in more darkly. So I'm going to shift my pencil. I was holding it like this before. I'm going to go up to here. This is going to give me a darker line. So I've got kind of this general guide, so I should know where everything's going to be, and I can make my darker lines. So for my outline of everything, I do want to start thinking about the texture. So for our tree here, we're going to have kind of a rougher texture to the bark than most things that we might draw. So one of the things I want to do is, instead of drawing like really straight lines, maybe I let my lines kind of meander a little bit, like this. I hope you can see it, but maybe there's a little bit of static in the line here. And right now I'm drawing a root, so my root kind of comes out like this, and into the tree base here. Got another one going back, same sort of idea. I can make kind of details on here, so I might make this like come up a little bit. Kind of think about different things that I've seen in trees and sort of play around with the details in here. It's going to make your drawings more interesting, just kind of playing around, because that's what art is, at least initially, is a method of play. I want to kind of experiment with that and play around with what we're doing a little bit. this one has some like thick lumps in it. Alright, you don't need to have 4 roots. You could have as many roots as you want. If you wanted to add more roots coming out of here any other direction, you totally could. Maybe you're drawing a type of tree where you're not going to see the roots exposed. You just do the cylinder straight into the ground. We'll work on that a little bit more next time, but for now we're just going to keep it kind of simple. So same idea, coming down the rest of the tree here. Just a slightly jittery line. I'm going to add like a knot right here, just for fun. So I'm going to draw like a foreshortened circle. I'm going to draw maybe some bark around it, make it sticking out a little bit. Bring the line up here. Maybe I make these little wrinkles around the knot stick out a little bit, overlap that edge just a little. Give it a little more depth. Just adds a little more detail to it. These are just going to kind of drift up into the leaves here. Alright, and I might also want to add some texture, so I might just add some similar lines that kind of go through the central part of the tree here. And if we want to draw specific types of trees, we can look at photos and see what the bark's going to look like and try to replicate those textures. For now, we're just drawing imaginary trees, so you can do whatever you want with the bark. Now maybe don't make these lines connect all the way through the tree, like I would keep them kind of shorter and break them up. Maybe just leave some blank areas. Alright, so now I've got a pretty well textured sort of trunk for my tree here. Alright, so next I want to do the leaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw each clump of leaves, but in the same way that I used kind of a jittery line for my bark texture, I'm going to do something similar with the leaves. So with the leaves, I'm going to go around the borders of each of my clumps of leaves, but I'm going to draw kind of a leaf texture instead. So I'm just drawing like kind of little C shapes. What kind of leaf texture you have on here might be different depending on what type of tree you're drawing. If we're drawing specific trees, we might want to try to replicate the leaves that we see there. And you can add texture on the inside. You don't necessarily need to make the whole area here covered in leaf texture. You can kind of, a lot of times, get away with doing just little clumps. A lot of times that looks even better. It's not only quicker, but it looks better. Might think about other details to add. Maybe you want to stick some branches out somewhere. I don't know. Got another branch back here. Alright. Not bad. If you want to shade this, you can do that too. Maybe have the sun coming from over here. Add a little shading. So the sun's coming from the right side up above, so we're going to shade the left side of things and down below. So I might just come back through here. Again, I'm using the side of my pencil now. Generally works pretty well for shading things. Do a little cast shadow back here too if we want. Just a little bit. Indicate that. And you can also shade these clumps. I might think while I'm shading about how to get some more leaf texture, so I might shade in a way that's a little more squiggly than usual. This guy back here is probably going to be totally in shadow, so I might just get that. And you can also, if you're coloring your drawing, you can also shade using different colors, right? Like I might color these all green and then use a darker green, or maybe even a blue for my shadow areas. Same idea on the trunk. Use a lighter brown to color the trunk and then get in with a darker brown in the shadow areas. Or maybe even use the same brown and just put a little more force into it. Alright, so now I've got a pretty cool tree. Yeah, so now what I'd like you to do is go over to this page next to it or another page and just draw trees for me from your imagination, and try to think about different tree shapes and try to replicate them. And just do me like a page of trees over here. And get as many as you can. Try to think about different shapes and details. Alright? Alright. I'm going to go ahead and draw some more trees. You don't have to draw with me anymore. You can draw your own. But practice drawing just different types from your imagination. And they can be trees that you have seen, or they can be really imaginative trees. They can be like Dr. Seuss trees. I don't really care. It's up to you today. Just play around and try to use that sort of procedure to do different sorts of trees. Okay? I should probably start upper left.